Tonight, the 4 million mark.
Do your part, stop the spread.
U.S. cases of COVID-19 keep ticking up as the death toll hits 147,000. Our CBN News exclusive interview with the United States Surgeon General.
And after the U.S. closes the Chinese consulate in Houston, China retaliates, closing a U.S. consulate on Chinese soil.
The free world must triumph over this new tyranny.
Plus,
it's just not the right time for that.
The president cancels the Florida leg of the GOP convention.
And we welcome the newest member of the CBN News Faith Nation family.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. What will it take to turn things around in the fight against COVID-19 from the perspective of the nation's top doc? Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. Happy Friday. Well, tonight the U.S. has the dubious distinction of another world record, hitting more than 4 million cases of the coronavirus.
That's right, and far surpassing other nations, and now with more than 147,000 people who've contracted the virus and died. CBN News White House correspondent Ben Kennedy spoke exclusively with the U.S. Surgeon General. Ben, what did he have to say?
Well, John and Jenna, the Surgeon General hit on everything from the administration's plan to safely reopen schools and churches to vaccines and treatments for COVID-19. Dr. Jerome Adams expects things to get worse or stay at current levels for the time being. He warns the country can't test or treat its way out of the problem, so it's up to people to help stop the spread.
Well, the latest about this virus is that we know more than ever about how to actually control it. I talk about the 3 W's all the time. Wash your hands, watch your distance, and wear a face covering like I'm doing right now. If we do these 3 things, there's actually data out there, studies out there now that show us that we can effectively slow the spread of coronavirus and safely open schools, safely get back to worship.
Do you think the virus can be eradicated?
Well, we don't know about eradication, but we know that we can stamp down the level of spread enough that we can get back to some sense of normal. So Italy, for instance, one of the hardest hit places in the world. Just 2 months ago, we were talking about people dying in hallways in Italy because the healthcare system was overwhelmed. They're now playing soccer games there. They're now having tourism come back again. They're now opening schools. This virus course is about 1 to 2 weeks in the average person, which means if you take the right steps now to prevent spread, as a nation, you can see dividends in as little as 2 weeks. We can turn this thing around very quickly. There's evidence out there.
Right now, Dr. Adams, several vaccines are in human trials. Do you expect or do you think we'll see a vaccine in the fall?
Well, I talk to Tony Fauci every day or every other day, and he still is very confident that we will have a vaccine by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. But I want people to understand that's step 1. Less than 50% of adults in the U.S. get a flu vaccine. So we can have a vaccine that's safe, we can have a vaccine that's effective, but if only half of Americans or even fewer in certain populations are accepting of it, then it's not going to help them. We need to work on vaccine confidence. At last estimate, it was over 4.2 million children who were behind on their vaccinations because of the virus. So we're worried we're going to see resurgence of vaccine-preventable diseases like measles, mumps, rubella. The World Health Organization actually has looked at this on a global scale, and they're looking at millions potentially of deaths around the world from the shutdown because people are falling behind on both vaccinations and on diagnosis of infectious diseases that go beyond COVID, like HIV and malaria.
Right now we are wearing masks. How important is it for the public to take the same approach?
It is incredibly important that the public realizes the importance of wearing face coverings. This has become politicized, and I think people need to understand that all politics aside, all of us benefit when we wear face coverings.
Right now, lawmakers are working on the next round of relief. What would you like to see in the bill?
Well, we want to make sure we have the resources available from a public health capacity to be able to respond to this outbreak. We want to make sure we have enough testing available for people and that we can decrease turnaround times. And I want the American people to know that we are working on that. We're increasing availability of point-of-care testing, which returns results in 15 minutes.
Do you expect things to get worse in the country before it gets better?
Well, based on the current trajectory, we do expect things to get worse or stay level for a while, because we know that cases are the first thing you see. The second thing you see are hospitalizations. The third thing you see are deaths.
Dr. Adams, you are a religious man. What is your advice to churches, to people, places of worship?
Well, I talk to churches, I talk to places of worship, I talk to faith leaders all the time, because they are in communities. And I just want to applaud them for being innovative, providing ways to keep people connected, even though they're socially distant. We know that our worship is a source of strength for many of us in trying times. And I really want us to really focus on those public health measures we can promote that will allow us to get back to in-person worship, focus on those social determinants of health. And we know that in many cases, our churches, our synagogues are really the places that help provide food when people are hungry, that help provide clothing when people don't have it, that help provide housing for the homeless. We just want to underscore how important those aspects are. And I just ask people in the faith community to continue to pray for me, and to pray for our leaders, and to pray that we have the wisdom that we need to help fight this virus, that we have the humility to understand where we've been wrong based on what we thought we knew about the virus, and to course correct, and to pray that we have the words to be able to help Americans understand the role they can all play, and to keep the politics out of it, because we're all in this together.
Now, Dr. Adams said more than 50% of COVID cases is spread by someone with no symptoms. That's why he keeps pleading for the public to do the 3 W's: wash hands, watch your distance, and wear masks. John, Jenna?
Important reminders. Thanks, Ben. Well, tonight, the rocky relationship between China and America is on even shakier ground after Beijing ordered the closing of a U.S. consulate on mainland China.
Now, this just days after the Trump administration made a similar move in Houston. CBN News national security correspondent Eric Phillips is following the contentious back and forth, and he joins us now. Eric?
Jenna and John, to say that relations between China and the U.S. have hit a sour note, well, that would be an understatement. And Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called the last 50 years of engagement a failure, echoing the words of former President Richard Nixon and comparing China to Frankenstein. All of this leading up to what the world expected, retaliation from Beijing.
The announcement came Friday. China has put forward specific requirements for the U.S. consulate in Chengdu to stop all operations and activities. Diplomacy must be reciprocal. Some action had been anticipated since the U.S. accused Beijing of massive spying, ordering China's consulate in Houston to close, a move that rankled the regime.
You're very angry. I'm surprised and angry.
While maybe a surprise, it followed news that 2 Chinese nationals had been indicted for hacking and stealing tech from American pharmaceutical and biotech companies, including work on a coronavirus vaccine.
China ripped off our prized intellectual property and trade secrets, causing millions of jobs all across America. It sucked supply chains away from America and then added a widget made of slave labor. It made the world's key waterways less safe for international commerce. President Nixon once said he feared he had created a Frankenstein by opening the world to the CCP. And here we are.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry responded saying Pompeo's speech disregarded facts and confused the right and wrong. It was full of ideological bias and Cold War mentality.
And the ministry went on to say that Pompeo's words were, quote, as futile as an ant trying to shake a tree. But Pompeo said communist China is already within our borders. And just yesterday, we learned about charges against 4 Chinese nationals who had obtained visas to do research here in the U.S. without divulging the fact that they were affiliated with the Chinese army. That's called fraud, visa fraud. And 3 of them have been now arrested. The 4th one is believed to be hiding out in the consulate, the Chinese consulate in San Francisco. John and Jenna.
All right, Eric, thank you very much. Well, canceled because of COVID. How many times have we heard that? Coming up, the president calls off part of the GOP convention. We discuss with our Faith Nation political panel.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel. Now available at cbnradio.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
Welcome back. Jacksonville, Florida's mayor and sheriff are thanking President Trump for canceling plans to hold parts of the Republican National Convention there.
Yeah, the president made the announcement last night, the reason being COVID-19 flare-ups. This was where he would have given his nomination acceptance speech.
And I'll still do a convention speech in a different form, but we won't do a big, crowded convention per se. It's just not the right time for that. I care deeply about the people of Florida and everywhere else, frankly, in this country and even in the world, who would be coming into the state, and I don't want to do anything to upset it.
Joining us now, our special Friday guest, Julia Manchester, political reporter with The Hill. Julia, always great to see you. You know, this week can be dubbed the turnaround week for President Trump, seemingly making an about face when it comes to taking a more serious tone on the coronavirus, emphasizing masks, then saying schools and hotspots should delay their reopenings, and finally canceling his nomination acceptance speech there in Jacksonville, Florida. Julia, why the change?
You know, I think politically, John, this has been very bad for the president. You know, there were a series of polls this month, most recently yesterday, out of the crucial swing states of Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Florida, showing President Trump being very far behind former Vice President Biden. We've seen that in poll after poll. More Americans are very upset with his response to the coronavirus pandemic. So there's no doubt that there was a political calculus. At the same time, though, I think President Trump for a while was banking on this theory that it'll get better, it'll get better. However, in states that have reopened quicker, Texas, Florida, Arizona, parts of California, we have seen a rise in cases. So I think President Trump realized that he could no longer say the virus will just disappear, because it's clear that this virus will have a long impact on many parts of our lives.
Well, speaking of the different states, right now there are a record number of lawsuits in states across the country that will, determine who will vote and how voting will take place. For his part, Julia, the president on Sunday, he declined to say if he would accept the results of the election. What's your sense of this? Is November 3rd shaping up to be a pretty messy election night?
There's no doubt that it will be messy, or it stands to be very messy. You know, in terms of how people vote, President Trump has made it very clear that he is against vote by mail, and he does not want a lot of vote by mail measures, despite the fact that he in the past has voted by mail. Members of his administration has voted by mail. Now, he claims there is voter fraud taking place. There's not a lot of evidence to back that up. So that's part of what's fueling this, I would say. But at the same time, you know, I think he knows that this rhetoric will really, you know, get a rise. He'll get a rise out of Democrats for essentially saying this. So, and he's definitely throwing a bone to his base. So, you know, I'm not surprised that President Trump said that he may not accept, or he was questioning whether he would accept the results. You know, I think this will be a very, very messy fight.
Julia, this week, speaking of Joe Biden, told a town hall, we've had racists. They've tried to get elected president, but he's the first one that has, referring to Trump, repeatedly calling the coronavirus the China virus. Charlemagne the God, host of the popular Breakfast Club, asked, how can Donald Trump be the first racist president in a country where 12 presidents before him owned slaves? Does Biden have to be careful about playing up race without it potentially backfiring?
Absolutely. And we've seen that Biden has made this mistake before. I mean, I think it was actually on the Breakfast Club where Biden said 2 months ago that, you know, if you're voting Republican, then you're not black. That definitely had a lot of backlash to that. So, and that was before a lot of these nationwide protests about, you know, police brutality and racial injustice started taking place. So Joe Biden needs to walk a very, very fine line. And one thing he needs to realize is that there is a progressive wing of the party that is very much trying to keep him in check and want to exert their own influence. So he's not going to necessarily get away with these comments, whether they're mistakes or not. You know, he's going to be held accountable, I would say, by progressives in his own party as well as Republicans.
Yeah. Julia, of course, we're all waiting to see who Joe Biden names as his running mate. What's your sense? Who do you think it'll be?
It's hard to tell. I mean, it seems like right now it will definitely be an African-American woman. We've heard Congresswoman Karen Bass is in the mix. Obviously, Kamala Harris, the Attorney General from California, Congresswoman Val Demings from here in Orlando. But, you know, it'll definitely be interesting to see who this is and how they're able to appeal to parts of the Democratic Party. Remember, Joe Biden does face a big task in uniting both the progressive and centrist flanks of the party, and we don't know necessarily if he will choose a progressive for that role. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, how progressives in the party accept his running mate.
Yeah, interesting indeed. All right, Julia Manchester with The Hill. It's always so good to see you. Thank you for joining us this Friday. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Coming up, we talk to the woman who stirred controversy by painting Jesus Matters over a prominent Black Lives Matter mural in New York.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
Welcome back. Tonight, the woman caught on camera defacing a Black Lives Matter mural on New York City's Fifth Avenue is speaking out.
Bevelyn Beatty is an evangelist and the co-founder of Well Ministries Incorporated. She made headlines by wearing a Jesus Matters shirt and spreading black paint over the New York City street mural with her hands.
CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody interviewed Bevelyn Beatty and joins us now with more. David?
John, I tell you what, she has a very interesting story. She grew up in the inner city of Charlotte, North Carolina, got into a lot of trouble. Her mom was on welfare. She actually went to jail, and 7 years ago in jail, she gave her life to Jesus Christ. The rest, if you will, is spiritual history. And where did she go from there? Well, look, she said, look, I'm done with this whole Black Lives Matter organization, not the sentiment, but the organization. And so she decided to go armed with a paint can to New York. We talk about it. Have a look. We've heard about drive-bys before, but this was a Jesus paint drive-by big time. You've got to tell me what you were thinking as that was going down. And I don't mean beforehand. I'm talking about like in the moment. And you see police coming up to you at Trump Tower and all that. What was going through your mind?
To be honest with you, I was like, I have to paint this mural. I have to cover this mural. And the reason I felt the urgency to do so is because I really just was so fed up. I was so tired of this Black Lives Matter narrative. I had just found out my cousin had been caught in a shootout in Staten Island. Got shot in both of his legs. One of them was amputated. You know, my family still lives in these inner city areas, these rough areas. And so it was hitting home. And so for me, I just was like, you know what? I'm fed up. We're going to hit it. We're going to fight and we're going to stand and God is with me. And that was it.
Well, speaking about God is with you, there you are saying Jesus matters, Jesus matters. Explain what your inner soul, if you will, is about on this, because this isn't about, it's not so much about anti-Black Lives Matter, though that there's lots of issues with that, but there's something above everything that you're really talking about and standing for here as it relates to Jesus.
Yes. The reality is this. Until Jesus matters in your life, nothing else matters. Your color will always be a hindrance to you. What we are seeing with this BLM and all of these other movements is that they prioritize their issues above Christ. First of all, in the Bible, it says there's no Jew, Gentile, male, nor female, slave or free man in the body of Christ. So as a Christian, we know color has nothing to do with nothing. We're united by the Spirit of God.
So, Bevelyn, let me ask you this. I mean, the Democrats have been going along with this big time, the Black Lives Matter organization. So do you believe the Democrats, for maybe a very long time, have been using blacks in this country?
So let's look at it like this. The Democrats are the ones who really helped pivot and launch this Black Lives Matter organization. The Democrats are the ones screaming, defund the police, get rid of the police. Yet the Democrats are the ones that run the cities top to bottom. LA, Democrat. Chicago, Democrat. Houston, come on, need I say more? These Democrats are already running the show as is, and let's be very clear. The police answer to the mayor and the governor. So if you really want to look at a bad system and bad police, you have to look at their leader. Their leader is the mayor and the governor, and they're Democrats. So something don't make sense. They're using us. They've been constantly using us. They've always used, first of all, they need the black vote because white liberals and white conservatives are always equally divided so much that it takes one colored block for somebody to be in the White House or back at the chicken house, okay? This is reality. But yet black people, because we are so set on voting for Democrat, because we're born Democrat, you just got to be Democrat. We don't even understand what being a Democrat is. You just got to be it. We keep giving them the votes. That's why Joe Biden had the audacity to say, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
So what does the church do from a civil disobedience standpoint? What can they do? Because it seems like you're out on the front lines. I mean, is this the way the church is going to have to combat the society in terms of where we're going here in this country?
Well, let's be honest. If the church had did their job in the beginning, I wouldn't be here combating in the first place. The church has not been standing up. So now at this point, we are at the point of no return. So now the church has to mobilize. The church has to get up. They have to get out. They have to stand. They have to make their voice known. The reality is this. The church has to start to stand on the Bible, stand on the word of God, and start to rise up and say, we're going to take our country back. We're going to obey the Lord, and we're going to stand. We're going to make our voice known, and we're not going to try to put up an image of holiness, but deny the power thereof. We're going to be obedient and submit to God and let him be the leader. They got to get out. They got to get active.
Evelyn Beatty saying that BLM, the Black Lives Movement organization, is against the traditional family. She says she's going to keep on fighting, and she's not done yet. John, Jenna, back to you.
All right, David, thank you very much, and we will be right back.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
Escalating fight.
Jenna Browder.
Chose his words carefully.
Ben Kennedy.
Plan to join him.
And Amber Strong.
For impeachment grows a little bit louder.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We get out and tell the story of the progress that we're making in this country.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6 on the CBN News Channel.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Finally tonight, if you caught our send-off to CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson a couple weeks back, then you know she was preparing to go on maternity leave.
And tonight, we are very excited to announce the arrival of Annalisa Joy. Abigail and her husband Derek welcomed their baby girl into the world last Thursday. Abigail has worked for CBN News in Washington since 2015. She's been covering Capitol Hill since 2017.
And while her roles at CBN have taken her on many adventures, we congratulate both Abigail and Derek on the most rewarding role as parents, one of life's biggest adventures and greatest blessings. Look at that happy family.
Oh, she is beautiful, and I love her name.
Beautiful name and
Just
beautiful
beautiful
baby face.
All right, everybody, have a great weekend. That does it for us.